So we'll quickly go through the list of things that you have to note from today's newspaper and the work that you should do. So for today, you will have more things to search on Google and understand the background. Okay. Now, firstly, this headline, violence in Manipur. See, this issue can be linked to our constitution. See, if you have to take a look at this entire issue, you have to understand the background. What is happening in Northeast in Manipur? See, in Northeast India, you will see fragmented tribal groups fighting for power. Okay, there is a conflict. This is a classic case of groups fighting between each other for control. What is the basis of that grouping? You need to understand the concept of ethnicity here. Okay, so this is a very lengthy discussion at you have to take almost, it will take 1 hour to discuss the entire issue. Maybe we will take up someday. Maybe in a special issue case, we'll cover all these points. But the central facet that you have to understand here is that between many groups, if there is conflict, it is usually for power and control. What is legitimacy? Meaning, how do I put it? Is it justified for them to ask for power? If you answer this question, you will get a clarity on the concept of justice. Okay, so that is all you need to know for now. Just go through the article, but you will probably not understand the context of the article. That's why I'm giving the context. Now, when you are reading this article, I want you to take away this: India Middle East Economic Corridor. Basically, economic corridors are those things where they will improve connectivity by building infrastructure, and if it is happening between two countries or multiple countries, that entire region will get benefited, more jobs will be created, there will be globalization. So projects like this you will see in GS2 under international relations. For prelims, this is very important. How do you link it to mains? You can link it to multilateralism. What do you mean by multilateralism? When many countries come together and discuss, that is called multilateralism. How do you link it to GS1? Globalization. Okay? Economic corridors or any infrastructure projects, diplomacy tools will become agents of globalization. What is globalization? I will briefly explain. Globalization means it is a process, a sociological process. What do you mean by a sociological process? A process which will bring people together. So globalization is a process which brings people together, which will facilitate exchange of goods, ideas, etc., etc. For example, the presence of foreign brands in our country is an example of globalization. McDonald's, Domino's, the very idea of a food like pizza is because of cultural exchange. The reason why idli and dosa went to places like New York is again because of globalization. So this is how you have to link it. That is a takeaway from this article, and this is what I want you to know. So there will be a lot of other things in this article which may not be necessary for you. As in, you will not be able to completely appreciate the context of it, and even if you don't, it's okay. Moving on. Yeah, take a look at this headline. Bangladesh student protester is a voter in Bengal. What does this tell you? We have already spoken about things like this. What is your basis for seeking a voter ID card? There is nothing. There is no process at all. So your 10th class certificate is good enough. What if you can bypass that? Make it, come and take a fraudulent certificate and then apply. So anyone can become a voter, and therefore, as an extension, who can vote in this country? Obviously citizens. Now you got a voter card, it means you are implied, it is implied that you are a citizen. Is there a separate certificate to say that you are a citizen? No. So this raises procedural questions. The other details of the fact may not be, other details of this entire news article may not be necessary, but this is a question that we need to address. We have discussed this topic before also in last month's editorials. Now go through this article and revisit article 5 to 11, okay, with respect to citizenship. Then look at how to get a voter card. What is its link to Aadhaar? These are the issues that you need to think upon. All these are not so important. Okay. NIA. See, when you look at headlines like this, for prelims perspective, how should you think? Okay. When you are looking at an organization, the first question that you need to ask is it a legal body? If yes, which act? If no, then how is it working? If there is no legal act, what gives them the power to take care of a murder case? Then why is CBI not doing it? Why is state police? Why are they not doing it? What is the difference between the nature of power of? Please write these points down, otherwise you will not be able to do. This is like homework. Just don't listen and leave, okay? Take down these questions, go back and do your research. Otherwise you will not be able to take value out of this class. What is NIA? What is the role of CBI? What is state police? And what is the difference in the way they are handling things? You should know, right? So these are the questions that you need to ask. See, National Investigation Agency Act 2008. What is this? Is there a latest amendment? What is the latest amendment to this act? What is the difference between this and UAPA? Is there a link? These are the things that you need to know. You need not know anything about this, but when I'm asking you questions, just by going through those articles with this mindset of curiosity will help you appreciate the differences. And this is how you will crack prelims easily, by understanding the logic behind things. Every law has a purpose and an intent, right? Understand that intent and you'll do well. Okay, take a look at this. Assam government slammed for slashing trees to make space for flyover. Who is slamming them? Who can question a government? Anyone. Basically questioning is okay, but slammed is a harsh word. So most likely it will be from Judiciary. Or, one second. In response to a public interest litigation petition, the state government told the High Court in November that it would avoid cutting down the trees. The government's affidavit, however, did not mention tree translocation or trimming. So, it said it will stop. But what about the damage already done? So, these are not really an important point to note, but just observe. In the long term, when you look at every article with curiosity and questioning mindset to understand the processes, you will be able to learn better. So let's say if you are spending 1 hour today, you should know what exactly to look at. So the half an hour discussion that we're doing here will be meant for that. Okay. Now this question, this editorial is something again about Article 19. I told you, right, Article 14, 19 and 21 are considered the golden triangle, and most of the editorials will be on this. Let's take the same case. What is Article 19? 6 freedoms are there. One of them is freedom of speech. And we spoke about the importance of dissent in a democracy. Multiple times we have discussed this point at length. So I'm not elaborating it again. So in this context, what I'm saying is, if the courts take public sentiment into consideration and delay a decision, is it right or wrong? The article writer, who is a senior advocate of the Supreme Court, says that if the courts take public sentiment into order, constitutional principles will be sidelined. There is a truth to that argument. The very reason courts are important in our country is to avoid this tendency where a judgment is delayed because people might not like it. But the article writer says that courts should always understand that they are the persons who are supposed to have the highest understanding of the society, and therefore it personally it feels to me that there is an element of truth in this argument, but also there is an element of shallowness. I will tell you, this is my personal opinion based on a logic. Why do courts exist? They exist to uphold some principles. If those principles are not accepted by the society, is it easy to impose them and rub them? By not taking a decision on a certain aspect of life, is the society malfunctioning at this point of time? These are the questions you need to consider when I say, for example, I'll tell you, there are some things which are important and there are some things that are urgent. You know the difference between important and urgent? You know the difference between important and urgent? Can you tell me? Please be a bit louder. When you are communicating, it should be audible to everyone. So important can be urgent. Important is about the system. It is about the system integrity. Do you think it is important to have a foundation for a building? Yes or no? Okay. If there is a situation where you have to lay that foundation in the next 10 days, for example, you have a project to construct and you want to build a building, a very huge structure. What is the most urgent thing? To start with the foundation. Or would you consider the paints and the decorations? So the urgency is about the order of priority. Okay, why am I discussing this? So when courts take public sentiment into consideration, it's because they need not be urgent. They might be important, but they are not urgent. By giving them a sense of urgency, you are causing unnecessary trouble. A classic case to the point being Article 44, Uniform Civil Code. What is Uniform Civil Code? Irrespective of your religion, you will only follow one law, which is not acceptable in this country as of now because the society is not ready for it. So even if the court comes and says, let's implement uniform civil code, society will not accept it. It's important to have it, but the society is not ready, so it is not urgent. So there are some cases which are taken, out of context. In some situations, as a matter of principle, he is right. But to dismiss any case where the courts are considering public opinion as, violation of constitutional principles, for me is a bit shallow. Because the very reasons why courts exist is because they want to keep the society intact. This article writer says that this is appeasement. We cannot delay our decisions because of, majoritarian sentiment. For example, he quotes this case where, Kamal Hassan said that Kannada actually originated from Tamil. So the court said, the court said that there is no case upon you, but you have to apologize to the masses because you have heard the sentiments of the masses. And the writer is saying that this advice, this advice is corrosive, because when the court suggests apologies for a lawful speech, they set a precedent that expression must pass a popularity test. What is freedom of speech? Article 19, clause 2 says that there are reasonable restrictions on your freedom of speech. One of them is public order. Did the court take any action against Kamal Hassan? No, right? All it said was issue an apology. It's a moral imperative when public order is disturbed. There is a danger of a moral public disorder. How is this a violation of freedom of speech? Yes, it is a lawful speech, but the writer feels that it is problematic because you have to it is being interpreted as only popular opinion should be expressed. The court did not do anything like that. It said that if you have heard the sentiment of the masses, just apologize and re-articulate your point. How you communicate your point is also important. In what context? There is a right to criticize, but there is no right to disrespect. So if I'm sure Kamal Hassan did not mean anything to disrespect, that's a different question. He is completely right to express whatever he feels. But if the court feels that it is probably going to disrupt the public order, as a public figure, it is his responsibility to reframe his statements, put some thought into how you want to articulate your opinion based on facts. Because in a public event, when things are not given a context, they can flare up. It might be true, it might not be true, but when you pass on a statement without setting a context in a public space, especially in a digital age like ours, public sentiments will flare up on social media because people do not have the time to think and react logically. So given these situations, court is not wrong in saying that you should issue an apology, or it will set a precedent that you can get away with anything and everything in the framing of your argument. Because in public space, whatever you say will have some weight. You have to do those things with responsibility, and issues like language, culture, etc. are of high, sensitive issues. And I'm sure as a person who has worked in all these industries, as a person who can speak so many languages, Mr. Kamal Hassan understands this. But if things are taken out of the context, he may not be aware of the consequences sometimes. So that's the reason why court did not take any action and is still having his right. His right is not being curbed by just saying that the court's asking him to issue an apology. He himself issued an apology. If he said that if things are blowing out of proportion, I'm sorry, it's not what I meant. It doesn't reduce the dignity of a person when they apologize. So as a principle, in the long term, you have to understand that principles are important. But if you have a problem with the institutions taking into consideration the public sentiment, that is a problem. You should not say that court should not react. So this is, when you read this article, it will be like a blanket statement saying that if you consider public opinion and not take a decision, it is wrong. For example, take the case of Ayodhya Ram Mandir. How many of us know that this case was not treated like a religious dispute? It is not about fundamental rights there. It is a classic case of property dispute. It's a civil case. And civil cases are not argued through constitutional principles. This entire case was driven by the findings of Archaeological Survey of India. They are fact based. There is an act called the Evidence Act, which was later amended. All this show that public sentiments, morality do matter in judicial scrutiny. By blanketly imposing a statement like judicial sensitivity to public is eroding constitutional values, need not be true all the times. Maybe there is 70% weightage out of 100 to the argument that he gives, because courts cannot be indecisive because of public sentiment. But to say as a blanket, like, see, he's quoting again the same person, Ali Khan Mahmoodabad was dragged into proceedings after sharing critical views. The argument was that his comments hurt sentiments. Okay, so the professor's scholarly critique became a matter for judicial assessment and a special investigation. There was this is a problem he's quoting. So all the article writers have a problem with the courts intervening and asking him not to speak. And I disagree with that fundamentally on the premise that there is a timing for everything. Your freedom of speech is your right, but the cause is above everything, and the country is not taking away your right permanently by asking you to stop expressing that opinion for a time being. And if your opinion can have weight, okay, you have a logic. If your opinion can make people think and stop a danger from happening, it's at least justified in that situation. But merely expressing and critiquing without a solution need not necessarily be a matter of urgency. It may be important in the long run. We can sit and debate it for a long time, but it is not solving any urgent need. And the courts should and will have that right to decide discretion of when to take a decision and not to take a decision. But having said that, they should pass the test of proportionality and procedural integrity. They should happen according to procedure. They should not be judicial creation. If there is no law which says that the courts can impose a restriction on the speech of a person considering so and so ground, or there is no constitutional provision which says courts can impose a restriction because of so and so reason, that is not procedural integrity. That is a definite problem. But Article 19 Clause 2 says there are reasonable restrictions. So this is not even flouting norms. That is the shallowness in the argument that I found, or one-sided argument. But having said that, using this, because Supreme Court is a court of record, Meaning, these judgments can be referred in the future and they can be taken out of context. And when there is a genuine problem, if people punish or if the courts pay deaf ears in cases where really there is a problem. See, this person is not arrested. Kamal Hassan was not arrested. Or any other person in a situation, if that person is arrested, then definitely you should consider. Because that person's right is being taken away, his liberty is taken away. Article 21 is being affected there. Then you have to question everything. Courts being silent in those kind of situations is a problem. But just for saying that you should not do this or giving a direction, calling judiciary that it is being overtly sensitive and that is eroding institutional integrity is a tad bit too much of an argument. It is definitely going to erode institutional integrity if courts are silent and Kamal Hassan was arrested. That did not happen. So use your logic. Your decision should be tagged to an action. Yes, as a matter of principle, you should have freedom of speech. But having said that, just because the court said, just be careful, watch, just because there are precautionary words, saying that it will erode values is wrong. As much as you have a right, you also have a duty. Just because the duties are not enforceable doesn't mean that you can do anything and everything. The social contract or the glue between the state and the individuals will stick together only when both the sides cooperate. Why is it only state that is imposing that? I mean, why are we feeling that we are entitled to have rights but we are not obligated to perform our duties? It should be both ways, right? Yes, we are less powerful. That is why duties are not enforceable. You can't have a government employee coming and saying that you are not performing your duty, I'll put you in jail. That is skewed power. And we understood and we did not make it enforceable for the same reason. It may be legally okay, but at least ethically and morally, isn't it fair that we expect balance from both the sides? I'm not implying that he behaved in a immoral way. Kamal Hassan did not do any mistake in expressing what he wanted to do. But the court felt it was out of context. So it is a situation where it might serve as a precaution for public figures to reframe their speech in such a way that it doesn't cause emotions to flare up. Rather, it causes people to think. It should be thought-provoking, not emotion-provoking. I know it is unfair for that person, but that is the cost sometimes of being a public figure. They have a very disproportionate responsibility and it is unfair. But in a society like India, sometimes we can't help it. So this is the framework of thought you need to look at this editorial. So what is the takeaway? Just because one editorial writer said something, don't stop your mind from questioning whatever that person says. Is there a logic to his argument? See the counter view. Is there a balance? Look at the facts of the case. Is the right being taken away? If that person is put in jail, yes, this entire article will make sense. If not, no. Is there preventive detention? Yes, you can say that, if the preventive detention is not as per the rule of law, question that. 100% valid. If that is also not happening, it's an overreach. It's like venting out your frustration. And those are the kind of articles which are not useful for our exam. Don't be influenced by that. Have your own sense of judgment. This is what I'm saying. Now, this consultative regulation making that should go further. So this is in the context of financial regulation. I am not going into the details of this article, but I will tell you the overall principle that you have to approach this article with. What is the purpose of consultation in a democracy? Let's take the case of farm bills, farm laws. You remember the protests that happened 2 or 3 years ago in Delhi? Roads were shut down, farmers were protesting on the streets of Delhi. People wanted to, some farmers wanted, especially farmers from Punjab and Haryana, they wanted the government to stop those laws. I'm not getting into the details of that laws, etc. But at that point of time, one major criticism against the government was that the government did not consult these farmers and other pressure groups while framing that law. And since they were not consulted, the groups felt that they were alienated from this decision making process, and that is impacting them, and that's why they protested. So regulation cannot be a top down approach where you impose an iron hand and just say, I'm giving an order, so just follow it. Democratic processes thrive because of mutual respect for every stakeholder. Why should you consult someone? Because it recognizes the dignity of that stakeholder. I am imposing a law, so it will impact you. I need to understand the impact. That is the true essence of democracy. So consultation is a bedrock of participatory governance. Right? If you don't consult a stakeholder, the impact will be disproportionate, or it will cause resistance. But consultation doesn't mean the government is afraid of taking strict actions. For example, if the stakeholder that is impacted is having a very strong power lobby and they want to stop that change. For example, in the case of farm laws, you cannot go and sit with the middleman and say, are you guys affected, so should I stop the laws? You have to follow an ethical principle called utilitarianism. What is utilitarianism? You can write this down. Utilitarianism is a philosophy which says you take an action, a practical action, where maximum people will be benefited because of that. What is the utility of your activity? Okay. With that thought process, read this article. So I will tell you broadly what we are talking about. In financial systems, there are broadly two regulators. Not two, there are many more. But in the context of this article, I am talking about two. For money and banking, you have RBI. For finance markets, you have SEBI. For pension funds, you have Pension Fund Regulatory Development Authority. For insurance, you have IRDAI. There are many financial regulatory bodies like this. What is the role of regulation? It is a body which is meant to act in such a responsible way that it will stop the system from collapsing. You don't regulate it to such a level that functioning itself stops. See, if it is too difficult for a common man to invest in stock market because of regulatory issues, that person will stop investing. If it is too difficult for a business to set up a company in India, they will just leave the country. So regulation should be in such a way that it is a sweet spot between discomfort and comfort. Just the right amount. How do you find that right amount? Through consultation. Actually go and talk to people. Common sense. What is your problem? Okay, another stakeholder. What is your problem? Your problem is not justified. This is a bigger problem. So I will move the policy in your direction. You are being unfair. Your question is fair. That is the whole point of consultative regulation. So in this context, write down this key word, pre-consultative legislative policy. You can go to my Telegram channel and search for this. Around the time where these formulas were happening, there is a Hindu editorial and my explanation in that with respect to pre-consultative legislative policy. The thought process involved in both these articles is the same. It is just the domain that changed. Did you write down? Go to the Telegram channel Hindu highlights and search for pre-consultative legislative policy. Okay, done? Fine. This is not a very important issue, and this is a completely lengthy discussion. Defense production, it will take an hour together, so we will take it as a separate issue. I will club many such articles and give a detailed explainer. See, just like how we discussed about stampede the other day, many articles will be coming up. So I will bring all those articles and explain like a issue coherently. Okay. Now, census. We spoke about caste census previously, how Telangana is a good role model for caste census, etc. You remember? Right. Now, when you are reading this article, these are the list of questions that I want you to ask. First, what is census? Answer these questions. Write down. Go back when you are doing your research. Ask these questions, you will get a clarity. This is important both for prelims and mains. Who conducts? Who conducts? When I say who conducts, the responsibility of finishing this task is given to whom? That body will use people for actually doing this work. How is it conducted? Ask this question next. Okay. What is being surveyed? What is the parameter that is surveyed? How frequently is it conducted? Then go to Article 246. What is Article 246? 3 lists are there. 7th schedule. In that 7th schedule, conducting census is a part of which list? Write this down. Okay. What is the difference between this survey and socio-economic caste census that was conducted in 2011? Are they the same or are they different? This is the question. When was the last time you had caste census? Ask this question next. Okay. What castes are actually counted in today's census? SC, ST, OBC. So when we are saying caste census, what is this about? Why is this caste census a new thing when we are already enumerating SCs and STs? Then you will see the link to OBCs. What is the end takeaway of conducting this? Next question. What is the end takeaway of conducting this census? Please write this down. Next, how is this linked to Finance Commission? How is this linked to delimitation? How is this linked to Schemes, welfare schemes. You find answers for each of this question. This article will stick in your mind. There is a proper chronology of questions that I asked. In that very order, if you read the article, you will be able to appreciate it much better. I'll give a quick recap of, see, before you search for this, I will have to tell you the story. Census is not just counting the number of people. It's not a head count. It is meant as a tool for taking policy decisions. For Finance Commission, let's say in the north there are more people than in the south. This is because from 1970s, southern states took measures to control population. Now today, if you come and say, I will give more money to the people where there is more population, don't you think it is like punishing the southern states for doing the right thing? This is opening up a new question. So, how should Finance Commission, which is there in Article 280 and which says that every 5 years we have to create a new law which will act as the framework for dividing your tax money between the center and the states. So there should be a formula for that, right? So Census will give that real-time update. Next, delimitation. Uttar Pradesh today has 80 seats. So if population will become the only metric, tomorrow North India will disproportionately have many more seats. So a country which wants to, a party which wants to get into the power will just focus on North India and completely ignore South India. This regional inequality will increase. Is it okay? So it is right for the southern states to have a concern about how delimitation will happen. And over that, you also have 33% reservation for women. How will that be conducted from 2026? It should be based on the latest figures, right? You can't have a 2011 data for a decision that will happen in 2026 and 2029. So how will you conduct that? Another question. Very valid question, right? Now, next up, welfare schemes. Beneficiaries will be identified based on various parameters. Who is identifying? How are they identifying? Having the data is important, right? That's the reason why we are this. Who is conducting this? So now what is this census? You must have understood, at least got an idea. Who is conducting this? What is the role of Home Ministry? There is one department under this Home Ministry that is conducting this. Go and find out. What is the power they have? 7th schedule, there is something called the union list. In that union list, you will find one subject which is associated with this topic. Go and find that. Okay. And within the census, first time we are trying to introduce caste as an element. Does it mean that we are doing something new? No, we are already enumerating some castes. Which castes are they and why are we enumerating them? This is a question you should search for. I can give you information, but why am I asking you to go and search? That will keep your mind active. That will make your mind much more curious. And that's how you will get better. Answer this list of questions, you are sorted. How is India planning to localize EV manufacturing? Why do you need EV? Do I have to explain? We have spoken this multiple times with respect to the theme of energy transition. Okay. Right. Energy transition. So, you can also, if you forgot, you can also go back to my YouTube channel and check for that. I have posted, one video about it. But having said that, This is not about the need for EV manufacturing, that is already established. How do you actually manufacture them within this country? We don't want to depend on someone else. What is the role of Ministry of Heavy Industries in this? What is the target we have? What are the incentives that are given? And what is the assessment of that incentives? Is it enough? When I say incentives, money is given to people who are manufacturing them. Is it good enough money for people to set up a factory? These are the questions that you need to ask and find an answer. What about our industrial ambitions? What is the industry saying? Is it good enough? These are the kind of questions that you need to find in this article, because there is nothing technical here. It's pure common sense. That is the reason I'm not explaining anything here. Sit and have the patience. Today's articles are important in the sense that they will serve as tools for you to think and search for information. Even if it takes 1 to 1.5 hours today, after this specific set of instructions, that's completely fine, because you're reading for the very first time. Make it a habit of reading the newspaper on the same day, you will be sorted. But it won't take this long, because I've already explained the direction of the article for almost 45 minutes. Clear? That's it for today. We'll meet in, okay, one more article, sorry. One more. Two more, to be very honest. Quickly. Antitrust. So there is a concept called monopoly. When you are searching for an information, let's say you're a small vendor and you want to sell your product on Amazon. If Amazon comes and says, unless you pay me some X amount, I will not even display your product on the front page. Or if you don't pay a certain fee, I will intentionally push your product to 50th page. Then the vendor will be like, but don't you think it's unfair? I'm already paying an onboarding fee to list my product, and if people are happy with my product, why are you still pushing me down despite that? Is my product bad? No, my product is good. You are still pushing it back. I think it's unfair. That is the power of monopoly. It will become a dictatorship. And as a part of the social contract between an individual and the state should intervene to make the consumer feel empowered. It should make the all the stakeholders equally empowered. It is not wrong for Amazon to charge a fee, but it is wrong to discriminate and charge money for not discriminating. Okay. Amazon can charge money for advertising, but it is wrong practice if you say that I will push you back, I will penalize you if you don't pay a fee. I'm just giving a hypothetical example of what monopolies can do. And there is an act in India called the Competition Act. Under that act, there is, write this down, Competition Commission, which will ensure fair practices in businesses and curb this monopolistic tendencies. Okay. With this mindset, read this article. Okay. Antitrust means doing things good enough to build that trust. Finally, this is the article you should pay more attention to. Today's newspaper is a bit heavy for freshers. There are a lot of important articles. So I'm not clubbing all of them together and dumping, but I'm just giving you a direction so that you can think. If I go for a detailed explanation of all this, it will take 2-3 hours. So there is something called stratospheric aerosol injection, SAI, SAI. So I will tell you the concept of geoengineering. It means you are trying to change your geographical systems with an intent to address the problem of climate change. So these are like temporary fixes. Say for example, what happens is you will put some aerosols, small particles in the outer space with an intent to reflect the sun rays so that it will keep earth cooler. How did they get this inspiration? From volcanoes. When volcanoes are erupted, they eject some aerosol particles which will temporarily cool that region, but it will have an impact on climate, wind patterns, monsoons, rainfall, everything. So it is not just a technical danger but also an ethical danger, because it might cool that area but it will impact rainfall in the next country beside you. That is a problem with this method. So go and read this article with that intent. I will also explain at some point of time the whole concepts involved in geoengineering. Okay. How technocratic solutions are, you can search this article. Okay, I've already explained multiple times on my Telegram channel. You can go and read it. I will post these articles today and link them to the old articles. Probably sometime in the night today, read these articles. Not now, after your classes, probably after 7 o'clock, go and sit and spend for some time. Read all the articles that I will be posting on Telegram. Okay? With the interconnection to the old articles, you will be done and sorted for this. Those who are new, please ask from your other students the Telegram channel that I'm talking about. You will be benefited from that. Okay, that's it for today. See you in the next class tomorrow.